So welcome to another, episode. But this time I would like to give something a different try, where it's kind of like transits. Basically, it is transits, but it's this one's particularly for people who have Aries in their Sun-in-Aries. So I'm just going to go straight into it. Hope you enjoy the reading, basically. And here we go. Okay, so as you can see here, we have lots of planets going on. I downloaded this from astro.com. We see here the sun. For those who have Aries in their sun, it's going to be from today. This is the time that I got this in was 2:29 in the afternoon where I am. So, but generally he'll have a general effect because especially with the moon will be in, I believe, where's the moon right here? Okay, so the moon is right in, oops, sorry, my bad. The moon is actually in 24 degrees. You can probably see here. I'm going to change this color right here to something a little brighter, probably something purplish. Okay, maybe that'll help. Okay, there we go. So 24 degrees Cancer. So between 24 or around 8 degrees 24, so possibly 2 degrees Leo, Cancer. 2 degrees Leo of your moon, or behind, so that's about 16 degrees Cancer. 16 degrees Aries. Your moon, if your moon is in 16 degrees Aries, or 32 degrees, 2 degrees Taurus. This will affect you right now. It's transiting for today. It'll be going into Leo within the next day or so. Or day, yeah. So it's going to affect you in a very different way. Your sign is going to be a little more, you're going to be having emotional concerns, probably with decision making, with what you want versus what you need. Okay, as you can see here, Cancer, the moon is in Cancer, but it also means that maybe some issues with your parents, like specifically like mother figures or your mom or a mother figure, issues with probably habits, eating habits. You might kind of get confused or might not know exactly. You might be challenged into taking on a new diet, or maybe something might change. Not necessarily change, but more like gets you to challenge what you feel about, what your senses tell you about your own desires, specifically what makes you alive, because your sun is in Aries. Alright, so this will definitely affect you right here. It's a cardinal sign, right? So Aries is a cardinal sign, so it'll affect you that way. There's other things too, might be a little more sensitive to your senses, might be your surroundings. If you have this, you might have sort of a little more sensitive to not only people's emotions, but your own, wondering if it's yours, wondering if it's other people's, especially if you have, let's say, Mercury in a water sign, so Scorpio or Pisces, and it's actually trying to this planet. So this is a transiting moon, right? So that means that you'll naturally feel what's going on and you'll be more sensitive to it. But because the moon is squaring your sun, it's going to affect you in that regard. What else is it going to affect you in? People in general, possibly. Okay, definitely, again, the emotions, what you sense. You might be kind of distant with other people. You don't know whether you should actually, or maybe it's the opposite. You might actually want to be a little more closer, so to speak, in a way that's, because Aries Sun people are revitalized by curiosity, the spark of life, new things, childlike. You guys are quite present when it comes to things. But when it comes to like tasks and actually doing things, sometimes you might kind of break off of something you started and then not pursue it. This will bring into question how you feel about those things that maybe not necessarily projects, but things that you started and then seeing, right, where it's going. Okay. The other thing here is, let's take a look. So we have 28 degrees. Here we go. Because the moon is in opposition to Pluto right here. You see this opposition line right here. So this opposition means that Pluto in itself, as a transit, it's also actually, there's a lot of intense emotions happening. There's a sort of a requirement, or this sort of need to actually try to balance the energies, because right now we still have Pluto in Capricorn. Right here, this is in the ascendant, but I don't think this will affect you. So, but let's talk about that a little after. So you have Pluto here opposing the moon. With this transit right here, if this is transiting your chart, the Pluto in Capricorn will also make you have also intense experiences with your emotions. Again, it's 28 degrees, so that means that if your sun is between 24 degrees up to 20 degrees, between 20 degrees Aries to 6 degrees Taurus, that means it's going to definitely affect you. So around this, between 24 28, so let's go with the common number, 26 degrees, let's say. If you ever see your chart, if you know what it looks like, great. If you don't, if you're Aries, this might affect you. Depends on where your sun is. You might sense these feelings of intensity, intense emotions, kind of questioning where your role is. Now again, depending on where your sun is. If it's in any of the houses, it's going to affect that when it comes to your decision making, when it comes to what you want to do, things that make you feel good about yourself, make you feel like I'm exploring the world, I'm childlike about it. So intense emotions might come about. This Pluto, of course, because Pluto is a like slow-moving planet, it affects us more like, of course, in a collective sense. However, it does affect you also personally. So it has been affecting you for the past, I don't know, probably, I'm not sure, 5 years. So the moment Pluto goes into Capricorn, again, it depends on where your Aries is, your Aries side, like your sun. It's definitely going to bring about intense experiences with also father figures, bring about probably trauma that you probably never had before, or that you've had before, something familiar. Because particularly Pluto is in Capricorn, it's going to be a little more about power struggles regarding the masses, power struggles with like having limits, power struggles with success. So maybe you kind of question where you're directing yourself or where you're headed, and you kind of, where's my purpose? So with Pluto there, it's kind of bringing that to the surface and making you realize. So if you're experiencing trauma, that's most likely what it is, or any sort of power struggles. Narcissistic people that you probably come across, especially with the moon here, right? You'll come across those as well. Narcissism, sociopathic people, psychotic people, probably people who don't know how to give you your own privacy and space and allow you to process things in your own time. So it might, again, the power struggles, it would feel really, really heavy and intense. And if it's not intense, then it's seething inside, and you don't know how to balance that yet. So there will be like a grand T square, or just a grand T, a cardinal T square. That means that's Pluto and Moon and your own sun are the two planets are pulling at you, and it's definitely going to affect you. Now, of course, if your sun is somewhere closer to the end of where Cancer is right here, towards Leo, Moon in this case suggests transitions. That means that you're going to, if it's going to a new sign, it means it's going to transition, possibly within a day or so. I'm not sure exactly when. I could look it up actually. Okay, so what I see from the website from cafeastrology.com is that, let's go to the 2023 ephemeris. So this month is November, so we're going to go all the way to November. Okay, so November 2023, the moon is going into Leo by the 5th. So it's coming up. In 2 days, he'll transition over to Leo, and that means that at that point, even that breaking point between Cancer and Leo, before it goes into Leo, that means you're transitioning to something new. You're going to experience something new, particularly with an experience, with emotional experience, generally speaking. Okay. If your Sun-Aries is already in at like a closer degree to the next sign, mean to Taurus, you tend to experience, I guess it's kind of like wavering, and it kind of like feels like you are bound to have this sort of feel like you need to go through changes. You want to go through changes. You want to transition to different new things. You kind of feel like what you're going through, it's like, oh, I'm done. Kind of feel like, so that's kind of embedded in you. I would say that I'm not sure if it really applies to natal astrology because it's more of your birth chart, but I think it definitely applies more to transits, and to people who do horary astrology, that definitely signifies it, but definitely transition. Okay, so what else do we see? Let's see if there's one in Libra. Aha, we have one in Libra. Okay, we have a cardinal sign, in Libra. So rather, planet in Libra. So here we have Pallas-Athene. For those who don't know Pallas-Athene is the inner wisdom that we get from downloads, from connectedness, from that inner intelligence, inner wisdom that is basically, if you look at the history of Athena, the goddess Athena, in mythology, she was the one she came out of Zeus's head. So it's all about wisdom. It's all about strategy and knowing sort of like the things are connected. So when she fought wars, or when you fight wars, but when she fought wars, it was all about strategy and trying to see, not necessarily going into an actual battle, but to see, can we approach this in a very sort of diplomatic way. Especially now that Pallas-Athene right here is transiting through Libra. If your Aries is closer to this sign, if it's kind of close to this, within 8 degrees before or after, when I say orb, those orbs before this, so it's kind of mathematical, but basically it will definitely have a pull on you because it's in opposition to your sun. So you kind of question your own beliefs, your own sort of way of thinking, your own intelligence. You might kind of wonder, I get this, but I want this way. So you probably might be dragged towards something more 3D, three-dimensional, this earth. But Pallas-Athene is saying, like, let's listen. So this might be the time for you to kind of balance what to bring in from higher dimensions into the 3D world. Kind of balance the both by appreciating what's in the 3D world, but at the same time, seeing, is this for the higher purpose? Is this for the greatest whole? I like to say whole, not good per se, but yeah, good really means like whole, not opposite of bad, right? So, but we do need to learn from the bad stuff. Anyways, that's another topic. So, with this opposition, okay, you definitely, I see a grand square here. So, not to mention, you go all the way down here, North Node in Aries. So if this is transiting your, not even Aries itself, but like Eris and Aries, because it's an actual, pretty much close to a perfect conjunction right here. So a lot of pull towards what collectively feels more like the journey, a collective journey towards individuality, freedom, leadership, also to kind of have more oomph in life, to kind of just live life. This is what's happening with North Node transiting, with North in transit, but also in these planets right here. Let's skip, we're just going to go Eris and the North Node. So with that, it's kind of makes you feel, truth comes out in terms of what purpose might be, what is actually what we're headed for, like what is real destiny. It's like, is this what you think is destiny? Is that what it is this what it is? Or does it have to be anything at all? Can it be just like what you really choose to be, or what you choose to do, right? It's, remember that it's really about being, it's about being aware and actually coming into connection with your true self, which is whole, which is already perfect as it is. This form is temporary. So Aries will bring about that sort of like, especially regarding Aries and the sign of Aries. Aries rules the first house, so it's a lot to do with the body and health. So when people experience Aries, Eris and Aries specifically, even with the North Node there, it is definitely about what it really means to be whole, healthy, living life. What is life? What is my purpose? Where am I headed? Not, yeah, in a way it is purpose, but more like how does this form come into play when it comes to discovering my own destiny and my own fate? Because it's not it's our fate, but expressed through the individual. The consciousness, the universe, is expressing itself through the human form, right? Yeah. So we're not humans. You've heard this. I think some people have already heard this before. We're not humans having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So what that means is this, right? But with this right here, with this, this is a cardinal square, grand cardinal square. You have this right here, all the way up to, sorry, it's gonna do something. Undo. So right here, I'm just gonna do this. So we have a grand square right here. Okay, you have Pallas-Athene providing wisdom at the highest level of awareness, like your ego is kind of affected. Oh, it's not affected. Well, in this case, the houses here kind of may or may not pertain to you individually, whoever is going through this right now. So, but yeah, Pallas-Athene. But the point is that the planets are the ones that, as you may already know, the planets are the ones that are the actors. So they're the ones that have an actual position, have the actual effect on what's going on itself, the what that's happening. Because otherwise, if you don't have the what, then you can't have the how or the why, which are the signs, and you cannot have the where, technically. Right? So yeah, you have this a grand square. What that means is that there's something that is always challenging you at all fronts, and even though those are challenges, those are not necessarily bad. It keeps you kind of on your feet, keeps you on your toes, keeps you on your feet, whatever. It's basically emotional awareness, to trust your higher self, and seeing what that brings about in terms of balancing that with kind of like seeing where you need to be, and having that sort of like, it's almost like you become your own catalyst, because Eris is a catalyst. Eris is a she was the goddess of discord, or goddess of chaos. So she kind of, for people who have heard the story of Eris, she was the one that was left aside. So basically ostracization, being left behind, but kind of it's a retribution thing, right? But it's also about being tested. So Eris kind of catalyst and starts off that spark and say, what is there? What is there? What is there? So every time you have Eris in your chart, it's something to do, we don't really know exactly for sure, right, what it is yet, because it hasn't gone to all, we've only seen Eris so far, and based on human awareness and consciousness. Eris has only been in Aries for as far as we know. So that means that our awareness of the concept of Eris and what it brings to the conceptualization of humans, at least in the 3D world, right? I think Eris kind of brings about change in a kind of more change that is not so much to topple over what's old, but more like to kind of not only topple it, but like turn it inside out. It's a very Plutonian planet. It's turning inside out. So while Pluto is there to reveal the truth, Eris is there to ask you, what is that truth? So Eris is kind of like that whole like, is this what you want? Is this so? And Eris makes you think, makes you process, makes you go through your emotions, makes you feel like, oh, was that right? Was that right? So I believe that Eris is the planet, something to do with testing and seeing, do we know what truth is? If truth comes out, is that the actual truth? Is that the only truth? Are there other truths? Is it truth? Is truth itself? It's kind of like a merry-go-round of thing, but not sort of, right? So again, it's like chaotic. So, what else? So we have that grind trine. That's a big one. It's affecting, that would affect Aries, especially if you have Sun in Aries, right? What else is there? So again, this is for Aries people with Sun in Aries. Depending on if you have Sun in Aries in somewhere closer to the 11 degrees mark, this will be referred to as this aspect, this line between the Sun of the Scorpio into Aries is a quincunx. So you will probably have to adjust to certain changes. People itself, the government, probably people who are like kind of like authority figures, not necessarily authority figures, literally authority, but yeah, some people who are in the leadership position, your boss, supervisors, people who are in management, or people just like our father figures, right? There's that caring part of that, but at the same time, there's that dominance sort of thing, especially with the Sun in Scorpio in quincunx to your, if it's in quincunx to your Sun, it means that you are dealing with kind of adjusting between what society wants and what you want. With it also being conjunct to Mars, aggression might be an issue as well. So you have to balance between when to take charge, when to take action, when to be assertive, and when it's right. So it's all about timing. Adjustments, it's timing, right? And sometimes you have to make changes, but then sometimes you don't make changes, because Aries can be stubborn in a certain way, because it doesn't, you guys don't like to be wrong, right? But with the quincunx there, it's going to challenge you in ways that it's going to question what you want and when to go about it, when not to go about it. So you have to adjust. You have to be more adaptive. You have to be like the mutable signs, right? Something that you have to adapt. I like this. The thing that I go with is the Borg. If you watch Star Trek, I do. It's we are Borg. We will adapt, right? So it's basically what adapt. Yeah, but adaptation meaning like flexibility, listening in, tuning in, especially now that you see that there is Pallas-Athene right now. What else? Oh, Lilith as well. Lilith here is a asteroid Lilith. It's not this one's the asteroid Lilith. So apparently what I learned from Lilith here is the process of individuality or rebellion against gender norms, sexual norms, just any sort of stereotypes that's kind of like to get away from labels. Lilith is about like getting away from that and finding your own, what is it that you need to rebel against, or what is it that you may not need to rebel against. So Lilith teaches us to be more accepting of our dark side, our inner moon, right? It's a darker moon. Lilith is not asteroid, but Lilith itself is a representation of the darker side of the moon, meaning our emotions, like our carnal instinctual selves, not just like emotional instinct, but like carnal instinct. So what does that mean? Like our animalistic side, like what is that? When I say animalistic in this case, it's kind of like 3D stuff. How much do you have to balance and adjust towards like for example, if you're hungry, do you just ignore that because you need to make sacrifices for that? No, you don't make sacrifices. You're hungry, you just eat. But do you need to eat that much? No. Right? You just eat enough so that it's not only logical, it's practical. It's all of the above. Right? Lilith was the one who embraced her inner demons. She's the one who apparently she had children with demons. So what that represents, at least the way I understand it, is it's coming to terms with your DNA, your ancestral self, and seeing what gifts can you find from that. Because really that's what it is, right? Life is, if you find the gifts in everything, you're fine, right? You become more whole, right? And sometimes stereotypes do have a role, but you have to kind of process that as well, instead of just jumping here and there. Aries tends to go here and there, and sometimes, again, the curiosity, that curious drive, it's a Mars-ruled sign, so it's like here and there, kind of just go, but you gotta rest, you gotta balance that. Okay. If you have Aries somewhere closer to the 20-degree mark, further out, quincunx definitely will take place between actually, let's go back to Lilith. Lilith will affect you, or the part of your psyche, the human psyche, the Lilith inside you, about being different and not giving into stereotypes and labels, and processing that. If your sun sign was closer to the end of Aries, so that means that your decan, if you know decan, it's like every 10 degrees. There's Aries kind of becomes a little bit of a different Aries. Aries in the first 10 degrees is more Martian Aries. The next one is more Jupiterian, and the other one is Aries. The second 10 degree decan for Aries, between 20 degrees and 10 degrees and 20, is a more sun-like Aries. So definitely a little bit more vital. It's just aggressive. It's more like childlike. The last 10 degrees, 20 degrees to 30 degrees, if your Aries was in that, your sun was in that Aries, you tend to behave more optimistic because of Jupiter. Right? So there's a more optimistic Aries. You're more out there. You're probably more risk-taking. You like sports a lot more than the other types of Aries. You enjoy those things. But going back to this, so in that case, the latter part, the third part of that decan, if you have that, then you're closer to Lilith than ever. So it won't necessarily be a quincunx, it's actually be an opposition. So there you have to join the two together, find what's your inner drive, and figure out what is that. What is the inner drive? What's your carnal instincts telling you? You have to trust that and see, okay, embrace and balance everything when it comes to that. Okay, now going back to another quincunx here, you have Mercury in Scorpio. This one is more about adjusting to your own self-expression, when to be more expressive about what you want or what makes you happy, even between you and father figures, probably your own father or yourself. You have your own father figures, not just external, it's also internal. The self-expression that you come to see, because it's also, and because Mercury is in Scorpio right now, it's kind of like watch out that your adjustments don't include like harmful words and harsh, like very, even though it might be true, watch out for who you say it to, watch out for like how you perceive things as well, your perception. Don't give in to just like reaction. Make sure that it's like you process the thought, you process it internally. You be able to do that because it's like you have a tenacity about it. Now, of course, if you have Mars, or if you have, even Mars or Mercury, even in like Taurus, watch out for that. You're gonna experience those the pull between when to be more expressive, when to take action, and when not to. You kind of, or in this case also, might be that you need to bring the two together and seeing your more darker side and embracing that towards your more Taurus side, more earthly. So like, instead of just allowing yourself to let go of things, which is just to transform, sometimes you'll need to find times to balance between when to take it easy, when to let go, and when to work at something. Can't always be about pleasure, can't always be about simplicity and not expressing yourself, and sometimes you gotta act, sometimes you gotta do things, sometimes you gotta say it. Okay? Same thing. If you have Ceres in Taurus, and if you have Ceres if you have a Ceres in Taurus, or if you don't have Ceres in Taurus, if you have something around Taurus, even though you are, Aries Sun, it might still affect you in any regard. Any planets in 23 mark opposing, like it's in Taurus, at 28 degrees Taurus, 12 degrees Taurus, it'll oppose Ceres right now. So there's a questioning of like self-care, whether you kind of feel maybe you take care of others more than yourself. You probably give up too much, and that creates a lot of trust issues, specifically with with Ceres right now being in Scorpio. So watch out for like those, pay attention, start with the body and pay attention to where that's leading you. Right? It always starts with the body. Consciousness and awareness starts from being aware of where you are right now. Don't resist what's happening. Just be with it, surrender. This is why I have the meditation. So, and also meditation definitely helps. To add to that though, I would suggest that with Eckhart stuff, it's not just, you don't need to meditate. It's not the doing that matters, it's the being. So, watch for his videos and you get a feel for that, especially if you have Pisces and, well, not that especially, but you trust it. Ground yourself by bringing your attention, not the thought, your attention to your body, and then go with the breathing, slow down. Right? Slowing down actually helps you to process things a lot more, because it's really nature. Nature is slow. Right? When we rush things, what happens? We make mistakes, we forget things, we lose quality, and so it basically just kind of, everything goes out the door, and it's just kind of like, it's shit stuff, right? That's not the way nature works. Nature is beautiful, nature is majestic, nature is divine, because nature is us. We are part of nature. Nature is us, nature is part of us. Nature is part of the universe, therefore we are part of the universe. We are the universe in this body, in this form. So, I hope that makes sense. So any planets in Taurus right now, between possibly like 11 degrees and 20 degrees Taurus, it's going to affect you in a way when it comes to being able to process where you're at in terms of how you self-care, your identity towards like nurture and self-care and basic needs. It's a lot more different than moon, because the moon is more about your ancestry, whereas Ceres is more about the external environment. But at the same time, it is part of yourself. Like, who should I depend on? Who should depend on me? But really, it's yourself. You and you, only you, have the meaning, your form. You get to choose. You get support from other people, just like you get guidance from the universe and angels and guides and ancestors. But really, the choice is always up to you. Okay, and also, let's take a look. If any of your planets, specifically starting from Mars on, if it's in Leo, okay, so if it's in Leo, let's say between, let's say, 11 to 20 degrees Leo, that will be more of a challenge. Any planets, especially if it's, let's just go with like the personal planets specifically. So besides your sun, let's say your moon was in Leo between 11 degrees right here to about 20 right here. If it's in between that, you're squaring this transition, right? These transits right now. So that means that it might be okay with your sun. Like, you feel like, let's say, any of your personal planets, let's say your moon, means like you know what you want. If it's your Mercury, you have this natural gift of self-expression. You know exactly where you're at without hurting other people. You have this sort of like, possibly like, you're very like, yeah, self-expression comes easily. If it's Venus, you relate well with others. You're able to, possibly in this case too, you're not just able to relate well with others, but because Venus in Aries is in its detriment. That means that it's not at home in that sign, but it means that the expression is not as out there. So, like, my dad has Aries, Venus in Aries, and his way we're relating with others is not really like a Venus-like thing, where it's very about, it kind of makes you feel like they care. Because Venus rules Taurus, right? So it's about pleasure and all that stuff, but also Venus rules Libra. Well, to me, partially. So what that means is being able to have your solid foundation, and you feel that, feels like you feel a little more secure when it comes to people with good, like a positive, so-called positive, okay, don't just take that literally, a positive placement in, let's say, a sign. Let's say if it's in Taurus, it's good. If it's in Pisces, it's also good. If it's in Libra, it's also good. Any of the opposite signs opposing that, meaning like Aries, Virgo, and Scorpio, like right now, no, Venus is not in Scorpio right now. So those signs, what happens is that their expression is a little more, the Venus sort of energy doesn't get sensed as well. However, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means you have to look deeper. So Venus, if you have Venus in, let's say you have Venus in Leo, that in itself will create a sort of like maybe aggressive relationships, or you might experience this. You might experience sort of miscommunications. You don't know where that's headed. There's sort of like, maybe there's sexual intensity between the two of you and your partner or someone. It doesn't matter. Even just in general, with someone, because Mars is right here as well. So it becomes more kind of maybe one-sided. But watch out for that. Be present and see, okay, well, what are the gifts behind all this stuff, right? Well, you can find the ability to be more withholding and time your expression, time the way you say things, see that there's strength in how to work with the relationship, that you don't necessarily have to just be all animalistic. I don't give a fuck, and just say whatever. No, it doesn't have to be reactive. You cannot be unconscious about it. You have to be more conscious and aware of what you say. Just be there and say, even with your own thoughts, just let them happen. Okay. Right. So that's what you have. If you had Venus in Leo, Again, and if you have Mars and Leo, that's one. That's the, like in this between 11 degrees and 20. When you have Mars and Leo, this will definitely, fights might come about. It's like, but watch out for those. Again, be conscious of like where your anger is heading, where your need for action, where your sort of assertiveness might be. Now, however, here's the thing. This goes the same way. If you have planets in Aquarius, same thing, right? If you tend to have your quirky personal side to yourself, like very different, very eccentric, very sort of hyped up, sort of not as intuitive as Leo. It's more out there, whereas this one's more, Aquarius is more like that nervous energy. It's like about change, it's about eccentricity, genius, right? All those things that are very Aquarius. If you have any personal planets beside the sun and the moon, you might be sensitive to this sudden changes in awareness. I have moon in Aquarius, so I have very sensitive like skin, very sensitive, like I can sense vibrations really well. But sometimes that comes at a detriment. Not astrological detriment, but yeah. Anyways, so same thing. You might come across these challenges to whether or not, because right now these two personal planets, specifically Mars and Mercury, are in Scorpio. It's more of a hidden, it's more internal processing sort of energy. Right? It's not that expressive. But if you have anything like Leo, a positive signs like the masculine sign of Leo and Aquarius, which is fire and air, it's more expressive. Then, because if you had like those in Taurus, if you have personal planets in Taurus as in Aries, it means that you're more likely to, especially with Taurus, you're able to internalize things a little bit easier. You're able to process, you understand that it's like, okay, I can take my time with this one. But when you have planets in, personal planets in Leo or Aquarius, this won't happen if you are with Aries. You cannot have this, the Mercury and Venus the max you would go is 2 signs from that. So if you have Aries and Sun-in-Aries, Mercury will be most likely only in Taurus or Pisces. Okay? Taurus or Pisces. If you have, and then for your Venus, it'd be maximum somewhere around Gemini. In Aquarius. So, but not Leo. Leo will not go there. Mars could, yeah, definitely, but it doesn't go 2 signs beyond. Venus doesn't go beyond 2 signs from the sun sign, from the sun, because it, a revolution around the sun, and the Mercury doesn't go beyond one sign past your sun sign. It's just how it is, just the planets. So you could have Venus in Aquarius, so it means like, ooh, you're like quirky, innovative, creative, just eccentric relationships that are different and just like out of this. Someone who's also more humanitarian. Yeah, so those things. But it'll definitely affect you. This transit with Mars and Mercury there will affect you. Definitely also with the Sun there, because again, this right here, this, I would say this is sort of almost a stellium. Not really. It's not a stellium. Well, sort of. For Mars it is. It's a stellium between the Sun and Mercury. So the focus, there's a kind of a focal energy with Mars here, because it's like all about going and doing, and aggressiveness and assertiveness and all that stuff. It's action. And also anger, and also assertiveness, initiative. So accidents might also happen. So watch out for those things. Watch out that you pay attention. That's why being present is important, because it's a practice. When I know this for a fact, because like I have Mars in Sagittarius, and it's like square my moon, so I get nervous if I'm not conscious, if I don't slow down. That energy goes through, and then sometimes I cut myself, sometimes I I stub my toe, I hit my hand somewhere, like, yeah. Because it's too like whoosh out there, right? It's not really grounded. Now, if you're used to that and you're okay with that, okay, cool. Right? Okay. What else is there? Sun in Aries. Okay, so what else? We have Venus in. We're going with the personal planets more than anything. We have Venus right here in Virgo. So if you have any personal planets that are in the mutable sign, specifically for Aries, it would be Pisces. So if you have a personal planet in Pisces, 25 degrees Pisces, or give or take 8 degrees, like 8 orbs. So that's the orb. An orb is the difference between two planets. And so, for example, if you have 25 degrees, even if it's in your own chart, it's not a transit. Your chart, like you see, Venus is in 25 degrees, and your Mercury is in 25 degrees also. It's what you call a perfect conjunction, 0 orb. But if it's in by 24 or 26 in for another planet, that means it's 1 degree orb. Mathematically makes sense, right? Okay. In any case, if you have 25 degrees in Pisces, with Venus in Pisces, 25 degrees, even with even if you have 25 degrees Venus in Gemini, because remember I said that the Venus doesn't go beyond 2 signs past. It's no more than 2 signs past your own sun sign. So if it's in 25 degrees Gemini, or before or after that, or if it is in Pisces, because you can't have Venus in Sagittarius if you have Sun in Aries. Doesn't make sense. So if you have Venus, then that means it's like kind of kind of balancing. First, if it's in Pisces, it's balancing things. It's kind of figuring out what other people want versus what you want and what you desire, what gives you joy. Not necessarily joy, it's more like pleasure, right? That would be more like Jupiter. So if you have a personal planet specifically with Venus and Mercury, then you have to balance those things together, because you're used to probably having this. You're very too intuitive and you're very perceptive about things, but there's a lot of emotion there as well. With Virgo, probably the people that you meet might be a little too technical, pedantic. They correct you and you kind of feel like, that's not really how it is. Why are you correcting me? You just kind of just like can you just let it go? Right? So, right. But to balance those relational differences between the two of you, or people that you meet in general, how you relate with others, how you also find, like, you question probably your self-worth and kind of wonder, okay, well, that's what they're worth. What's my worth? So that's also Venus. Be careful of jealousy. Be careful of like where that before you also project onto people, because that's Venus. As Venus rules the 7th house well, so it's somewhat to do also. Yeah, it's relationship. So it ties into projection, shadow. So watch out for where you point your fingers, and see where are the other 3 pointing at. What gifts can I find in what I see in other people? Every person that you meet is a reflection of yourself, because it's what you're subconsciously designed. It's what you want, right? Venus is not just the planet of love. It's not just that. It's also about love, as in we think love is like a relationship, like, oh, I need them. It's like, no. What about again? That goes back into worth, self-worth. So if you have Venus in Pisces, that's Mercury as well. So it's an expression of yourself and how you express yourself in relationships, and how you express your worth, and how you, right, those kind of things. If it's in Gemini, definitely like it kind of might square, when you have something in Gemini, it's more about the spontaneous fun and more logic, and it's, Mercury feels right at home there. Mercury also feels right at home in Virgo. But what happens is, if you don't with Mercury in Virgo square, especially if you have a personal planet there, even if it's Mars, he just wants to be a little more youthful. He wants to kind of just go at things and multitask. Virgo is not like that. Virgo likes to kind of focus a little bit more. Virgo likes to curate, likes to learn through practical means. Gemini is more about just learning through logical means. Right? So if you have specifically, well, in your case, if you're Aries and Sun-Aries, you will not have, you won't have Mercury in Gemini. Venus in Gemini, yes, kind of flirtatious, right? So watch out for those kind of things. You might kind of flirt with people who are not willing to flirt with you. You might be like, oh, and they start to go like, why are you flirting with me? They kind of question it. It's like, what's your reason for this? They get logical, but at the same time, what is this? So you flirt for the sake of flirting, right? There's that thing about our personal planet with Gemini is doing things for the sake of doing, because Gemini takes on the qualities that kind of passed on from Aries to Taurus. Simplicity, practical, not as practical as Virgo, but more like just doing it for the sake of just doing it, because it's more about the self. Aries to Gemini are the signs that rule the first quadrant of the houses. And it means that it's more focused on just discovery. It's curiosity fulfilled, or you want to kind of. But these are the times when you start to kind of question where you're at and where your role is in terms of like yourself. What's my role in this world? Where am I at? It's all about I. Everything's I. From the 4th house to the 6th house is also I, but it's starting to kind of connect more with others, and finding a deeper meaning and sort of like direction towards. It's more emotion based. It's more about your health and your body rather than what you see in your immediate environment. Okay. So with that in mind, watch out for that square. If you have Mars in Sagittarius, this might square Venus. Again, remember the orbs, don't forget the orbs. If you have, this might affect you, where again, aggression might take place, or like some sort of like, there might be heated sort of like relationships where he feels like, oh, that's hot. This is a hot relationship. Or I feel like this is making me, but it dies quickly, because, well, especially because you have mutable signs. But more to it than that, it's the fact that when you have Mars and Venus square, it is, it becomes a little, there's a lot of heat going on. There's passion that might go, but then it'll just fade because it is temporary. So you watch out for those relationships or people that you meet that are always so impassioned, where you might come across someone super smart and you kind of maybe just, and they're drawn to you because you're so adventurous. And watch out for those kind of things, because especially as Aries, you like that kind of stuff, right? But watch out for those things. Is it real? Is it something that right? Is it something that's actually genuine? Well, look for genuine. Right? And that's Pluto again will test you on that one. With your sun there, even if you have moon. If you have moon in any of this, the moon can go in any sign, because it traverses every sign every 2 to 3 days. Right? So you're bound to have any of those signs. If you have moon in Virgo, this will be okay with you. You know how to work with this energy. If it's in any of the other 3 mutable signs, so moon in Sagittarius, moon in Gemini, moon in Pisces, you might start to feel kind of like you don't want to relate with people who are very pedantic and technical and analytical and kind of like very factual, fact-based, always just kind of questioning things and not just accepting them, and not having some sort of like, Virgo among the mutable signs is the one that's more technical and wants to kind of question and to get things right. It's all about perfection. You might feel like that, but again, find the gifts between the squares, keep you awake. And when you get something that you don't want, it's a sign that that's not what you want. So therefore you go for what you want. Stop going with that. Change directions. Go the other way. Okay? Because definitely if you don't want someone who's pedantic and kind of like, no, don't go with that. Trust that. Go. Meditate in the moment, meaning be in the present moment. Again, look for Eckhart Tolle stuff. Or just look for Zen stuff. It doesn't have to be Eckhart. Right. What else is there? Those are the biggies. Transpersonal planets wise, you have Jupiter here in Taurus. So any sort of like, I look for the square aspects between your birth sign, like your natal chart placements, and what's transiting right now. So if you have any planets like in the fixed sign like Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, and Leo, and it's kind of around this mark right here, 10 degrees Jupiter. This Jupiter here, first of all, before we continue, Jupiter here is in retrograde. So that means societies, or more in general, like everyone, is kind of being challenged to process their own optimism, process their own what they're worth, but also what their goals are, where they're headed on an internal way. It's not external. It's not something, you don't look for things to give you fortune and luck and things that will make you feel good about yourself. You don't just look for those outside of yourself. It has to be internal. Find your own optimistic side. Find your own growth. Are you actually growing? See where you are. It's the time to process things where it's like, have I grown? Where have I come? How far have I come? Basically. So that's kind of questioning it. So if you have any of the other three fixed signs, Aquarius, Leo, and Scorpio, this will affect you. If you have it in Taurus, good for you. It's already kind of processed. I like retrogrades because retrogrades repeat. It's the aspect of the human psychic experiences that we have and our perception of it. That whole caboodle, that it just like it comes back to teach us. Sometimes we don't want retrogrades, like, oh, okay, but no, it's time to reflect on the things that retrogrades represent processing of the impermanent. Basically, I think retrogrades teach us not only certain planets like Pluto teach us to embrace change, and Uranus as well, and yes, Neptune to a degree, but yes, that's true. Yeah, Neptune as well, but also like retrogrades. Retrograde planets are good because it means that you get to process it internally, even though it might feel like you feel insecure about those energies. It's okay. Take time. This is the time to process things inwards. It's inner work. Then we have Saturn. So again, it's right here. So if you have Saturn, because Saturn is just new, it's like right into Pisces. Saturn retrograde. So Saturn retrograde is definitely internal process of internal, like, not willpower, but kind of like faith as well, through hard work, through discipline, inner limits, like why you have limits, why you should have limits, and kind of like question where your own maturity lies, karmic duty, to say, okay, this is what I need to do, because it's in Pisces also. It's that karmic duty. It's like sort of working with fears and saying, okay, what am I afraid of? Why am I afraid of? Like, where does this come from? Right? But in this case, it's in Pisces. So we think it creates a lot of limitations and insecurities with our own beliefs, with our own faith, with our own idealism, with things that we find are like escape routes, so to speak, like where we feel the magic, where we feel the illusions, but it becomes delusions, right? So karmic delusions, karmic fears, karmic idealism. What is it when we idealize something, when we think that this should be sort of this way because it's like, oh, we're so far off, we're off in the skies. Saturn tells us like, wait a second, hold on, right? But it's not the active part of Saturn because it is retrograde. It is more like you know within yourself that it's like, So it's more like an inner knowing right away. People with retrograde planets they're very much not only like introverted people, but also like introspective and retrospective people. I would say I only have one retrograde in my chart, so mine's all like, oh, I think I have Ceres in retrograde. But anyways, so if you have 0 degrees between 8 degrees 8 degrees in any of the mutable signs, or 8 degrees behind in any of the fixed signs, you'll come across this as a sort of a square effect. You might be challenged to process your own inner guidance, your own inner karma, your own inner Cronus, your own inner Saturn, your own inner, like, what do I need to stick with? What do I need to focus on? What do I need to kind of rematerialize into my own self? Like manifesting as well, probably kind of ties into this as well. If you don't work at something, you're not going to get it, right? You might have the thought, you might have the belief, you might have the feelings, but it has to be, you have to commit to it. Commitment. Right? So, but at the same time, not to be too strict with yourself, not to be too hard on yourself, not to create so much limits that it's like, well, I just can't move, I'm stuck. Don't do that. Right? So, but if you have any placements in water signs close to between 8, maybe 6 degrees Pisces, any planets, kind of, you know how to work well with this. You'll know how to work with this Saturn energy. You kind of like, okay, it feels like I know I need to go back to, it's kind of like almost like Mercury in retrograde to some degree. It's like, stick to the plans you already made, or stick to what you already know, stick to what you already have, enjoy it, but without limitations. But with trines, if you have trines, it's like it's in Cancer and in Scorpio, if you have any personal planets, specifically personal planets, Saturn here will be comfortable. You know how to be kind of almost like, you know how to be disciplined. Oh, I feel this sort of energy. Okay, great. But if it's so comfortable to the point where it becomes unconscious, watch out for those. Then surprises will come at you and be like, oh, crap, right? If you have trine, not trine, if you have a sextile placement, so that means that it's in an element, a quality of an element that is compatible with water. So let's say 6 degrees, up to 6 degrees Taurus, or up to 6 degrees Taurus, up to 6 degrees Virgo. No, up to 6 degrees Taurus, or up to 24 degrees Capricorn, a personal planet. That means that it's you can use that energy. You can use that. It's a harmonious aspect, but you have to focus on it. Otherwise, it won't come naturally. It'll be natural, it'll be flowing like a trine, except a sextile is about 60 degrees, right? Then you kind of you need to work at it. You need to focus a little bit more. But you can do it. You'll definitely, like whenever in my chart I have sextile Mars with my Saturn. So whenever I need to get disciplined, I work at it and it comes through. But at the same time, sometimes it's, when your limits is. Your sun will tell you your limits. Your sun will say, is this joy? Is this filled with joy? Is this easy and light? Meaning, like, when I say easy and light, I mean not to the point where you get lazy, but like, is it filled with joy? Does it make me shine? Does it light me up? Okay. So watch out for those things. That's about that. For those people who have questions about the other planets, I didn't really talk about Uranus. I didn't talk about Neptune, because right now you have us, you see this right here? There's a trine here. That's a flow that keeps flowing between Mars, Mercury, Neptune, Moon. So this right here, whatever's transiting, Moon is here. I don't know what Moon is will be considered here. Like I don't know what it should be called, but basically because of the transiting Moon here, it created this trine, and it made it sort of just flow. But it has to come out. Once Moon is out, that trine won't. It'll just be between Mercury, Mars, possibly for a few months, I believe, with Neptune there, because Neptune will be in Pisces for a while. Absolutely. So, anyways, so the next few days, it'll go in transition into Leo and on the 5th, and this trine will disappear. So that means that whenever you see this sort of trine here, I forgot what this shape is called, but I don't really try to, I find the trines are easy to work with, so I don't really, it's not what's more important. What's more important are the squares, the oppositions. Okay, even, yes, conjunctions. Okay. Again, watch out for this opposition though. Not again, sorry, I did mention this. Watch out for this opposition from, there's a pole. So Saturn is doing most of, Jupiter is doing most of the work here. And it's like opposing the Sun. The Sun. Really? It's opposing Mercury here? That's interesting. Oh, because it's still 10 degrees. Okay, some conjunctions still go up to 10 degrees. You can. I like 8 degrees, it's because it's more powerful. So when you have an orb of 8 degrees, it's still powerful. 10 is kind of much weaker, so to speak, but it still works. So with Saturn, with Jupiter here opposing these 3 planets here, if for your chart, Aries, right? If you have any planets, particularly either in these signs, close to the Scorpio thing, like most likely Mars and beyond, if you have any planets in Scorpio, or if any of your personal planets, pretty much all of them in Taurus, then watch out for the pull of, again, that sort of aggressive communication, questioning your own self-worth, questioning your own nurture, your self-care. Watch out for those. So, but balance that with figuring out what it is that gives you joy. Because if you have Jupiter here, it's teaching you to hold on for a second. Let's draw back, right? Even more if you do have any planets in Aquarius. Again, as for you, Aries, Sun-Aries, again, Mercury and beyond, that's fine in Aquarius. But in Leo, it's only from Mars and beyond, Mars and the planets. You don't have any planets in Leo with Venus and Mercury. The moon, yes. The moon, absolutely. There'd be the moon in Aquarius, that's fine too. Watch out for those emotional things, especially with the moon there. The moon is quite strong as well. If you have moon in Aquarius or moon in Leo, watch out for how these transits are actually affecting you at a more personal level. Like go within, sit with those emotions, process them, and seeing, okay, find the gifts. But in any case, that's about it. I hope that was informative, at least kind of gives you an idea of what to work with. But that's all for today. It's been a pleasure to provide such information on this beautiful thing. Yeah. I don't know when the next post will be for, like, I'm planning on doing it for Taurus, but for Aries, it just came to me last night. I was like, oh, okay, I should do one for Aries. So something will be for Taurus or maybe another sign. We'll see. But yeah, watch out for those things. In any case, I will see you guys later. Thank you for watching.